Bonjour, bienvenue au soirée dialogue La Converse. Hi everyone, welcome to the dialogue night. We wanted to create a space today to allow you to talk about Palestinian pain and your experience as Palestinians, especially with what's been going on in the media and what you've been living and feeling in your everyday lives. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Emilia Fournier. I'm a contributor with La Converse, and this is the first dialogue night I've ever participated in or hosted. So I'll pass it along to Leila.
Hi, my name is Leila Savic. I'm the founding editor of La Converse. I'd like to thank you all for being here today and for sharing what you feel comfortable sharing with us.
Okay, my name is Imad Balqis. I'm a Palestinian. I was born in a Palestinian refugee camp in Lebanon. First part of my childhood spent in that camp. So yeah, that's I grew up in Lebanon, moved around in the area, and ended up getting a job away from the Middle East, and ended up here. And
my name is Nafisa Hassanin. I am Palestinian. I was born in Al-Ramla city in Palestine. And when I was 3 years old, soldiers came. They knocked at our door, and my grandfather opened the door, and they told him, get out of here. And he said, why? He said, get out of here. And they put the gun in his chest, and they told him, if you go back, you will be dead. So my mother heard it, and she said, well, who's there? And the soldiers saw her, and then you come, bring your children and come. And then she brought us. We were 2 boys and 2 girls. The oldest was 7 years old, and I was my sister Layla was the youngest. She was only maybe 1 year and a half. My mom went back. She wanted to bring something, like some money, something for personal, and also they put the gun in her chest, and if you go back, you will be dead. So she took us, and we went out of the house, and we walked, and they were shooting at the branches of the olive trees. The branches of the olive trees were falling on our heads. This is, I was 3 years old, but this is my mom's story. She was telling it day and night. Every day she was telling us that what happened there. And then we were scattered. My siblings they were lost here and there. And then at last we met in a place where people said, if you have anybody, you're looking for anybody, there is a mosque there. You can go and you can find your children. Then we went to another part of Palestine, to Hebron, El Khalil, where we have relatives there. We stayed with them for about 3 months. Then there was an announcement that anybody who is from Al-Ramla, anybody from Jaffa, Ramla, Al-Lid, should head to Gaza. People from north of Palestine should go to Lebanon and to Syria. We're preparing you to go back to your homes. So everybody was very happy. So we left Hebron and went to Gaza, hoping that we'll go back to our homes. But since that day till now, nobody mentioned anything about going back. So we went to Gaza, and we stayed there till maybe my dad found work in Egypt, and he said, we have to live in Egypt because of your education. And so we left Gaza and went to Egypt. And my mom and my dad passed away, hoping that one day they will go back to Al-Ramla. Even that's funny that my sister knew a young man in the university, and it was a very nice love story. So they wanted to get married. My dad said, "Oh, how can I give her to an Egyptian? We'll go back to Palestine. And when we go to Palestine, I'll leave her here?" No. Then my brother told him, "Baba, you are dreaming. Let them get married, and then we'll see later on what happens." Yeah, maybe I have to stop here. And thank you very much. Yeah.
Nice story. I also lived the Nakba, 1948. I'll probably, during the discussion, I'll get back to relating my feelings of the Nakba in 1948 with what I see the children of Gaza today. I relate to them because I went through the same trauma. But our exile from Haifa was nicer than what we heard before. I was born in a street that holds the name of our family, Sahyun Street. And in the building, on top of the building, there were militia, Arab militia people, of which my uncle, who was shooting at the Haganah down. So we got a letter that if the militia continue on shooting at the Haganah, that they're going to blow the whole house. My grandfather had 10 children, all living in Haifa, with grandchildren. And he told us to ignore because he had political contacts. He was the vice mayor of Haifa for 14 years. So he told us to forget about it. But when the cousin of my mother came to bring us some food one day, he was shot from the Haganah down the street of the Sahyun Street, and he died in front of our house. That was a triggering point where my grandfather told his children, listen, my daughter, he has one of his children living in Alexandria. Let's go and spend the summer in Alexandria. But while the shooting was going on, my father took us to Beirut, my brother and myself. My brother was 1 year old, I was 4 years old. Left us with my grandmother there, because on the mother's side, he had shielded his family in Lebanon, my maternal grandfather, because he had a lot of olive trees in Ishfa-Amir, and he was involved in political activities, so he was afraid for his family. So he left us in January. From January to March, we were at my grandparents in Lebanon. My father drove there. It's a 2 hours drive from Haifa to Beirut. So when my grandfather decided to take all his family, let's go and visit my aunt who was living in Alexandria. We'll spend the summer there, and then when things quiet down, we'll go back. So my father drove, picked us up from Beirut, and there was a very nice story to tell, because he put his car and us in the boat, in a ship that was going to Alexandria via Haifa. When the ship stopped in Haifa, my father went running to the bank because one of his loans was due. He went to pay one of his loans instead of withdrawing money. This is an indication to show you the state of mind that they never thought that they would not be allowed to go back. And that is a very interesting story. Until now, all my uncles were making fun of my father نزل يدفع بدل ما يقبض. Anyway, we went to Alexandria, and it was in March of 1948, and obviously we were never able to go back until we became Canadian citizen. But I'll probably have the chance to tell a bit more about the whole story as the discussion goes along.
Nice story. My name is Neda Samaha. I'm originally Palestinian from Jenin, from a small village called Converse. My parents left Palestine after the 48. They did not become refugees. They went to Jordan, and they stayed there until the war of 67. After that, they couldn't go back. They wanted to go back, but they couldn't. So they lived all their lives, and we were all born in Jordan. My story is about when we visited Palestine for the first time after 50 years. I always heard about Palestine, the homeland, our homeland, and I wouldn't imagine I would visit it while it's under occupation, until a dear friend of mine who said, you should come visit us. They live in the Negev. So we took the chance, and we took the kids to visit Palestine for the first time in 2019, just before the Corona time. And we were lucky to have this friend because she took us everywhere in Palestine. The minute I touched the ground on Palestine land, it felt different. I felt like going back to my mom. This is the way I felt. It was very emotional visit for me. And then the thing that I regret I didn't visit, it's Gaza. We were all close to Negev, and Gaza was just 15-20 minutes drive. And I asked my friend, can we go there? And she said, unfortunately, it's under siege. You cannot go there. She talked about the people, the nice people there, the food, the beach. And I dreamt to go there. I couldn't. Now I regret it because all the good things, it's all destroyed. So for me, it was a great trip going back home. I would like to talk more about the kids, how they felt, the things they saw, the hopes they are looking for in going back to Palestine. So we'll talk later.
My name is Arwa Nofal. I am from Palestine, from Masdoud, from Gaza. It's a long story. I born and raised in Saudi Arabia. I had the chance to get back to Gaza when I got my citizenship, Palestinian citizenship in 2000, during Oslo. And I went there. There was once I got there, everything changed in my life. Like I felt myself. I felt like I have identity.
Jocelyn Maid or Jocelyn Maid.
So I came here in 2017 just to change the subject until we get to the questions with my 3 children. And I work here. I did a lot of volunteers. I work as an outreach at community organization. And I started to continue my study here at Concordia. Last Sunday we had a class about the indigenous and about the First Nation, and that was very, very intense. And it's very, very similar to what is happening here. And I was very very sad about what is happening, comparing what is happening now and what happened to the First Nation and indigenous. I left the class. I couldn't stay. So hopefully today I can speak up And thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for inviting me, my friend.
Okay. I don't know what just happened, but I'm just really overwhelmed. Okay, my name's Asma. I'm Palestinian Lebanese. I don't know if this is our Palestinian pain story moment, but I was born during the Israeli invasion of Beirut. And my parents said I was a baby, so there was bombing around our house. I think there was a Syrian army post nearby, and so they used to go into the corner and cover me with their bodies. And that's my, that's my story of how I came into this world. Unlike, I've never been to Palestine. I think that's my that's what's difficult for me, is that I've never been there. I heard stories that my father would tell us, but not very much, because a lot of them don't talk, so my experience of being Palestinian is really separation from all my family members. Now all of them there's some in the West Bank. There's one of my closest in Syria. I don't know my grandmother. I met my grandfather. He was very old. He was 92 by the time I met him. We couldn't go to his funeral. My dad couldn't make it to his funeral. It's this kind of thing. That's my version of this story. And it's my dream I really hope one day, okay, I can't even say the sentence, but it's my dream to go with my father. But I don't know how feasible that is. Okay, I'm going to stop.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this. Imad, you didn't get to share your stories, so I'll give it back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I was born I was born 10 years after the beginning of the Nakba, which started in 1948. So and the Nakba continues until this very moment. Actually, it's not an event. It's something that started and has continued over 76 years until this day. So I was. So it was, I was born in a refugee camp, and everybody in that camp were refugees, people who left their villages and came to Lebanon thinking it's about 2 weeks' time, and then we go back when the war finishes. We go back to our villages. This was the state of mind of my grandparents, who packed their stuff for 2 weeks. These were simple villagers. They didn't have suitcases, bundles of clothes. That's how they packed. And they walked across the border to Lebanon, where they had relatives, thinking in 2 weeks we're going to go back to our home. They just locked their homes, took the keys, took their kids, and walked across the border. War was finished. There was no more Palestine to go back to. They were not allowed to go back. A year later, I think, about a year or 2 years later, UNRWA was created. They established refugee camps, and they asked them to go back, move to the camps. They have gathered everyone in the camps, because this is the only way to preserve your right to go back. This is how they told them. You will be registered as a refugee, otherwise you'll be lost. So anyway, I was born in this refugee camp, so everything was still fresh 10 years ago. The Nakba was 10 years earlier. And I, as a kid, you don't really have an awareness of the real problems. You just play and go to school. I went to an UNRWA school. So I guess my first shock, my first coming of age, so to speak, was the 1967 war. I must have been in grade 3 at that time, and they let us out early because there was a war going on in Lebanon. So I didn't go home. I went with my friend Hassan to his home, just playing. I went to his home, and his home I never forget his mother. As we walked in the door, she was so cheerful. She came and hugged us. She said to her son, Hassan Habibi, we're going home to Palestine. And I looked around and she was packing. She was actually packing, again, bundles, packed, all. She was ready to go home to Palestine. Because if you followed the news at that time, it was full of bad coverage of the war. All the Arab media was saying, oh, the armies are liberating Palestine, we're winning the war, blah, 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 blah. 2 days later, of course, this woman who was packing to go home realized how far that dream was, because 2 days later, everybody knew that the Arab armies were defeated in 6 days and more land was taken by the Israelis. So again, I mean, I went home after that, again, found my parents, my grandparents, everybody huddled around the radio, listening to the news, thinking, oh yeah, we're ready to go to Palestine. And that was the first letdown, I suppose, in my memory at least. But my parents had seen much more, and I and my generation and my kids are still seeing these letdowns by Arab armies, by Arab regimes, by international community, by United Nations, by human rights. It's a series of disappointments, and nobody seems to care until this very moment. If you watch the news. So I guess that's my conception of the pain came as I grew older. As a kid, you just play and you see the pain in your surroundings, but as I was growing up, I mean, I remember 16 years old. I was 16 years old when the civil war erupted in Lebanon. And of course, the Palestinians were a central part of that war. And there were shelling on the camp, and there were fights around the camp. And I lost my first friend. I was 16, he was 16. We were playing cards in the evening. I went home. Next day we were burying him because a shell fell on their home and killed him, and so on and so. I mean, a series of. I lost so many friends along the years, and this is at a personal level. But even as a Palestinian who's growing up to the politics of the problem, just seeing Israel encroaching on Lebanon, on areas inhabited by Palestinians, assassinating, shelling from airplanes. I mean, this was a story of our life. So this was adding pain, adding insult to injury, so to speak. I mean, everybody was in pain, but the Israelis won't let you forget it. They will chase you even into refuge, into refugee camps, as happened later in Sabra and Shatila, in my camp, and so the pain continues until today.
Thank you all for this introduction. It was not, we didn't mean to go that deep just yet, but thank you. It was very moving. I want to ask you one simple question. Today we're here to talk about Palestinian pain. Why do you want to be here today?
Why do you want one?
Why do you want to be here?
Why do you want to be here?
Why do you want to be here to talk about here in this space? But why is it important for you to be here today to talk about this?
Okay, I can start. I mean, I just for me, it's again, as a Palestinian, the largest part of our life is suffering neglect by everybody seems to be against you. I remember Edward Said framed it very nicely when he said back in the 80s, he said being a Palestinian living in the West is a very, very disheartening experience because you feel everybody's against you. And again, Edward Said was always saying why hasn't our cause caught the imagination of the world like South Africa? Why is the Palestinian problem is so clear, so unjust, and why is the world not listening? I think if he was alive today, he would probably have seen his dream come true, because now it's really catching the imagination of the world. Finally, it's all about Palestine. Hopefully this will continue. But I mean, that's why am I here, because I think we grew up wanting to be heard, you know, wanting to be expressed. It is such an enormous injustice, incredible magnitude, that just the world goes on as if nothing happens, particularly with Palestinians. South Africa, the reaction was different. Everywhere else, Ukraine is the latest example. Look how the world reacted, as it should. But when it comes to Palestine, it's layers upon layers upon layers of prejudice, of I don't know what it is, but the simple question is, every Palestinian has a story. Every Palestinian wants to tell his story or her story.
You want somebody to listen to us. We want somebody to hear, to see our pain, our suffering. You can't imagine yourself living as a stateless person, even in the Arab world. It's not only in the West. In the West, you're neglected. Nobody is like, even when you look at the news and on the TV, you don't see anybody like is like sympathizing with you, or even now, nobody like what's happening in Gaza now. You can't. I say, what's that? You have to go to Al Jazeera in order to know. Why don't you know from here, from Canada, from here, from this area? So this really makes you frustrated. At the beginning of the war, I was so sick for 15 days, and the doctor said, "What's happening with you? There is nothing wrong, but I have fever. I was going to die 15 years. Then my children, they prevented me looking at the news, because it was really horrible seeing what's happening in Gaza. That reminds me of every moment that I lived like through 1948, 1965, 1967, all the wars that these wars, as if the war in Gaza triggered all the pain that we went through, all these wars. It's very important, also to mention that it's not only in the West. Even if you are a stateless person in Egypt or in Saudi Arabia, or you feel alone, you don't feel that you don't have like somebody. If you have a problem, you don't find anybody to solve the problem. If let's say any of these governments, they don't recognize you as a person, as a human being. I survived because I was like one of the students that got very high grades in secondary school, and I got a scholarship, and I went into the university with the scholarship, and I was one of the best students even in the university. And when I finished the university, I had the chance. We were like at that time, when you are an university graduate, you are like a rare currency for the Gulf area. So they come to Egypt, to Syria, to Lebanon, and they take people from there to educate their children or doctors. So we were really like a rare currency at that time. But you are educated, you are doing very well, you're working very hard, But nobody considers you as like a first class person in this country. They always call you a foreigner. Even in you are a foreigner. They go into the classroom. My children are there. All the foreigner students in the class. Tomorrow there is a trip to so and so. I don't want to mention. So yeah, there is a trip. So all foreigners they are not allowed to go. My children are there, and I'm a teacher in the same school. Tomorrow, all your children, if you don't bring the paper so and so, you are not allowed into the classroom. Like that. So when you live as a stateless person with no embassy for you, where somebody like to support you, you feel like you're nothing. You're nothing. You're doing every good thing for them. You're serving them. You're educating their children. But at the same time, they are looking at you as nothing. You are a foreigner. You are a foreigner.
This was your experience?
Yeah. Yes.
Israel or
not here, in the Arab world. Yeah, in the Arab world, it was really, it was really so. We suffered a lot. Yani, all the Palestinians, and not only me, we suffered a lot. So we decided, like, all the money that we gain in these places, we save our money to invest in the education of our children and giving them the opportunity to get a respectable passport. So we decided to come to Canada. Yeah. Even when we came to Canada, wherever you go in Quebec, we interview anybody, améliorer ton français. How can I améliorer my français? It doesn't come in a minute. And so, so we didn't find work. I was considered one of the most achieving people in that part of the area. I began as a teacher, then I became a supervisor, then I was training teachers, and I wrote books. I was an author, but at the end, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. Yeah. So we decided, like, we didn't want our children. I have 5 children, so I don't want my children to go through the suffering that I went through. So we decided to come to Canada. When we came to Canada, améliorer ton français, so as you can get a job. My husband also was like an expert in that part of the world. Yeah, he was an expert in processing foods, and he was making, like, they give him the budget and he makes the plant from A to Z for processing meats. And they were fighting who's going to get Muhammad Ali Sabbagh to do that for them. So when we came here, I can't get any job. How can I support my 5 children? I don't want them to feel that I'm not supporting them. So I told my husband, I can't live here. We have to go back to the Gulf area. And we were welcomed when we went back. We got contracts immediately. I worked in the Ministry of Education, and my husband worked as like an investor in the private sector for processing foods and so on. And whatever the money we got from there, we sent to Canada. So as our children, we didn't want at that time. This was our way of thinking that we do not want our children to work. We want them just to get the certificate to go into the university. We were afraid that if they work and they get the money, they might not continue their education. And our goal was they have to finish their university and get the Canadian passport. And so all our papers were expired, and Canada prevented us from coming back here. They said, no, your papers are expired. You spent more than the specific days. And that here began the suffering. But we were so lucky that we came here in 2017, in July 2017, and at the border they allowed us to get back, but you have to begin from scratch again. You have to apply for the citizenship, lawyers and money and torture and هذا العذاب. This is the pain. Yeah. Sorry.
I think it's a good question to say why we're here. Actually, thank you very much for telling us and making a very nice group. Basically, there is things that we have to relay to the Canadian public. Whether it's the Jewish community or whether the non-Jewish community in Canada, I think what we have to tell them that 1948, the partitioning of Palestine in 1947 was a historical mistake. It was a historical mistake that was taken in the context of British Empire colonial time, the French and the English separating the whole world. You came to invade a very peaceful country where Jews, Christians and Muslims were living very peacefully together. You came with arms. Instead of buying property, you kicked people out. The Palestinians have two very strong weapons. One, a very high level of education. There is the Palestinian families after 1948 have become paranoid about immigrating to places where they can put their children to good schools. And this level of education is among the highest in the Arab world. And that's a very strong weapon, because wherever we go, okay, we can lose money, we can lose property, but we will never lose our mind. The second very strong weapon that we have is our tongue. Our tongue has been expressed with music, with poets, with writers, with philosophers, with visionaries, and it has spread among non-Palestinians intellectuals as well. And after the 7th of October, a very strong third weapon came in that we did not expect. I did not expect at all, because Ben-Gurion said, first prime minister of Israel, he said, the old will die. That's true, I will die, she will die. But the young will forget, and that is wrong. After the 7th of October, the emergency of the young population in the streets, in the schools, in the universities have been phenomenal. It has forced governments to take actions that they have never taken before. It's not a one-year-old story. And these are truths that we have to express and tell the people, and we have the means to do it. And thank you very much for letting us expressing it. For me personally, seeing the children of Gaza running in the streets, being bombarded, has recreated my traumatism, because we're children of war. We left maybe in good conditions to go to Alexandria and grow up in Alexandria, but my grandfather was a wealthy man and a powerful man, died blind, poor, and humiliated.
Okay. So the first thing I wanted to say is that I think that clearly there's a lot of Palestinian pain, as you just said. Introduce yourselves, and we told you everything. But I also want to say that we're that's not what defines us. We're very proud. We're very proud people. We're proud of ourselves, of our the people who came before us, and just to be to maybe put that out there that it's not the only part of not just our experience. Our experience is painful, but there's also a lot of resilience. And a lot of will. And so I wanted to just point that out. That's one of the reasons I wanted to come. The other is related a little bit to what some of the people were saying already, which is that there's something missing here in how we're represented and how we're understood, if we're engaged with at all. And if, often if you bring up Palestine or the Palestinian issue, you can see like a look of panic in people's eyes, as if you need to know 100 years of history to be able to have a conversation, which is not the case. But I do think that there is something fundamentally misunderstood here about the Palestinian experience, which is that if you were born in this situation, you would do the same things. I think you would do the same. I think there's nothing about us that makes us, we're not exceptionally violent. We're not exceptionally angry. We're not exceptionally stubborn. Our experiences have forged us as a people. And I think that very basic understanding that on a fundamental level, we are exactly like you. Like, our experiences are different, our culture are different, of course, but if we had been switched, our places had been switched, you would do the same thing. I think that very basic understanding is missing here. And so, just like everybody else was saying, I'm here to humanize us. That doesn't mean that I'm going to whitewash us or say that we are something that we're not. I mean that on a basic level, there's so much of Palestinian experience that isn't represented here. Imad talked a little bit about like refugee camps in Lebanon, but I used to volunteer there. I was quite young. And the first thing I noticed, of course, it was in Sabra and Shetila. I was 18 years old when I started to volunteer. I worked with children. Of course, you notice the garbage, and you notice that, it's very, very cramped. And there's the mass grave, and there's so many of those things, but you don't really see what is so catastrophic about the situation in the camp, which is that at some point the children become youth and they realize, I have no future. And that takes a while to see. It takes a while to see in that situation. And that's just one thing. I can tell you more about my own experiences working there. It has never left me. And I, think about them all the time. But that's just one tiny piece that I'm saying that is not represented here. Palestinians are, look at here. There's Palestinian citizens of Israel. Among them, there's the Bedouin minority. There's Palestinian refugees in Lebanon. There's Palestinian refugees in Jordan. Then there's Palestinians who are citizens of Jordan. Then there's Palestinians in the West Bank. Some of them are refugees from inside Israel. There's Gaza. 80% of them are refugees. There's Palestinians in the West. There's Palestinians. We're everywhere. Our experience is so diverse in that sense, in the sense of how the Nakba has shaped our lives. But that expands, like the sort of the breadth of that, the detail of that is not represented here. we're really made to fit into a box. And so that's why I wanted to come here, despite, you know, it's not easy and it's not safe, actually. And so many people we asked had all kinds of situations where they had to say no, not because they don't want to talk, but because you're put in the spotlight and it's dangerous. You get harassed, you get bullied, you get, some people lose their jobs, among so many other things.
Racism is a real thing now.
Yes, exactly.
I would like to answer your question, but also talk about why I'm here, because I owe it to my kids, to my grandchildren who are Canadian, Palestinian. It's such a disappointment with the Canadian government to see what's happening in Palestine and to see the support for the other side. They just close their eyes about what's happening in Gaza. So we need to raise our voice. Nobody will do it for us. As Palestinians, we need to talk about our stories. We don't want anybody else to explain what we are suffering. That's why I owe it to my kids also to tell them that we did not hide, we did not disappear. We were raising our voice, we were outside demonstrating, we went under the snow, we took our flags fighting, although it's a peaceful fighting, but we are resisting what's happening in Gaza. We are making history now, and this is how my kids became very pro-Palestinian before the Gaza issue. They were just working, doing their things here in Canada. They had no idea what's going on in Gaza. Even me, I didn't know it was under this bad siege. It was a big prison. They cannot enter food, they cannot enter medicine. This was even before this war. So for me, it was a shock. I needed to learn more about what's happening in Gaza because we need to help them in every way. And my message to the Canadian government, wake up, open your eyes, look at this part of the world. They are suffering. They are being killing and bombed at this moment. So we need to do something, especially us as Palestinians, to raise our voice. We have to help them. And that's why I'm here, to raise my voice. Thank you.
May I make just a small comment on something you said? Yeah. They know. Governments know.
Yeah, I know they know.
They're sending weapons. The Canadian government sells weapons to Israel during this genocide. And that goes for most of the Western governments. So it's not just lack of information, it's active support. That's what needs to stop.
I spoke about the governments. I know they know. But the thing is, for me, Canada was the place where peacekeepers, they always try to be in the, not being proactive in wars. They were trying to help people. They were always on the side of the weak, on the side of the victim. But not this time. That's why we need to go out and tell them, yeah, you changed my view about Canada. It's not the same. You need to go back to being the peacekeepers, the peace initiators. This is my message to them.
Okay, I enjoyed what you have said, but we will go to political a little bit. But just to answer the question, 2 points. The first one, that we want to tell people, and like especially the Western people, that it didn't start in 7 October. So it's been like a lot of years and a lot of suffering and a lot of stories behind, and history, a big history behind why 7 October happened. And the second thing, why I'm here, because I have a lot of, like, all my extended family are there in Gaza, and they are in Rafah and in Jabalia, and they are under the attack now. So, but sometimes when they get to the internet from like, I don't know how, they see our stories. They see where we go, where we come, and what we posted, and what we are doing. Like in order to just to like yes, they wanted like they need hope that we are listening and that we are acting and that we are thinking about them. And I lost a lot of my family there. I lost like a whole family just died from like Nofels and my other family and friends, and we had a lot of memories, and we saw each other, and they got lost, like they died. So the rest of them, I want them to know that we are aware about them, and we are I don't know. That's my heart. Yeah, I never. أنا ما راح أنساهم والله يحميهم يا رب.
Thanks for sharing. I hope everyone's feeling okay. And if you need to take a breath at any point, you can let us know. My next question is sort of, why do you think the media doesn't talk about Palestinian pain, or maybe more accurately would be Palestinian humanity? Because it's not just the pain, as you pointed out.
When we were young, we were like Canada was for us like the perfect place ever. And we used to see the peacekeepers in the Middle East. They were all Canadians, well-dressed, very smart people, very, very elegant. And we look at them and say, oh, yeah, beautiful blue eyes. And angels. So, yeah, really, we were looking at them as angels. But when I came here and I see the media, the Canadian media, I read the stories about the Aboriginals, and so it was like I shifted my thinking from A to Z, and I was just asking myself, why is this happening? Why? I might maybe answered my question, but I'm not going to do it, except that I have to mention one thing, like when recently after we wanted to get into Palestine, my in-laws are in Gaza. Now they are in a horrible condition. After they were living in their land, their villas, the villa where my husband was born, they sent us the pictures. It's like this. Yeah, it's like nothing. I say, where is the rubble? They said no. The bomb came. It took the villa 10 meters down. There is no rubble, and the other homes of his brothers and sisters that were built around, they were all burnt. They go inside and they burn things. So they don't see this. I said, this is one example, and they don't see this. When they made us like a laissez-passer for visiting Palestine, and I insisted to go to my hometown, Al-Ramla.
When was this?
Al-Ramla, that was like maybe 10 years ago. And I took my children and I went there. We took a taxi cab and he was taking us all over Palestine, from Akka and every place. We went everywhere. When we reached Al-Ramla, I went to my home where I was born, it is distinguished because it's the only place that was built next to the railway station. So my father, when he got married, he said, "I don't want to live with the family. I want to live. We have a piece of land," and he built there a home. And when we reached there, we saw somebody living, a Jew living in our house, and my husband said, "Let's knock at the door. Maybe he will allow us to go inside." And when he said these words, I collapsed. I fell on the floor and I was crying and crying. So he put me in the car and we went to downtown Al-Ramla, and we saw the places there where my family lived, their houses. They were all taken by Israelis. And when I went back home, my mother-in-law told me, everybody goes there and they come back, their smile from here to here. You go on this trip, and when you come back, your eyes are red, and I say, "Oh, what can I say?" And it's like all the feelings that were stored, like were in my they come back to the suffering, and my home is there. Why I am not there? Yeah. So always I ask myself, why? They don't see that. Maybe we are not talking enough. Maybe we are not writing enough, as you said. But I see that the Palestinians are like all over Europe. They are very educated people. They write, they are poets, they are doctors, they are well-educated people. And sure, the Canadian government knows about that we are peaceful people. We just want to see justice take place in this horrible world. Yeah. I went there and they were like living a life that, Gaza is a place where when you walk in the you feel that the atmosphere around you is full of like the smell of orange trees, the flowers, the scent in the air. It's as if it's magic. It's really so. All that is gone now. Gaza is nothing now. It's so it's there. You can't see it, but you're not doing anything. It is there. So that makes me feel that one day maybe they can like hurt us, even if we were not there, even if we are outside of Palestine, that they might reach us or do anything bad for us. Yeah.
We have to make sure that we can speak at any podium, anywhere. We need to present ourselves, do the things that we have to do to make our voice loud. And I think it's both ways. The media doesn't care, or they're afraid to speak about the Palestinian issue. They talk about the Ukrainian, they talk about any problem in the world, except when it comes to Palestine and Israel, it's something like a taboo. They cannot even talk about it. And I heard a lot of story, we read a lot of story, when people talk about it, either they kicked out of their jobs or they lose their places and positions. So that's why they are scared. And I think that's why they don't talk about this.
I think it's really important to understand that the Palestinian situation, the war in Gaza, is not just our problem. It should be something that you look at and see yourself in. It should scare you that this is what warfare looks like right now. And I think that if the more people understood that we're not an exception and we're not those people who have, you know, they have a problem as one people, and really understand that if they would approach our experience and approach this war, understanding the connection that they have to it, I think that it would be represented differently.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard some scholars say, you know, and like we've seen it as well as in media when we talk about Palestinian death, we talk about it in numbers. When we talk about Jewish death, we talk about it in humans. Is this something you also notice?
I think we have to be honest to themselves. The West looks at the developing world as subhumans. I strongly believe in that. Okay, if they had blue eyes like in Ukraine, they're different than if they're Arabs in Sudan, in Sri Lanka, in Tibet, or whoever they are. So some of the things I always relate to be able to counteract that is that the anti-Semitism is a European phenomenon. And the Balfour Declaration was in line with giving a homeland to Jews because Jews were hated in Europe. It is not an Arab problem. We are Semite. And the people who came to colonize Palestine are not Semitic. They're coming from Eastern Europe, and they're coming initially, they're the descendant of Noah, not even of Abraham. Abraham are the Semites. They're the Sephards. The Ashkenaz came from the areas north of Turkey, which had a great kingdom for many centuries, which is the Khostan. And so I always put that doubt in the mind of people. Stop saying that we are anti-Semitic, we are Semite. The anti-Semitics is a European thing. We've got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about politics, and a lot of our questions leaned a bit more on the political side, but I want to try to bring it back to how you're all feeling. And I think I'm going to ask something that, you know, you can think about how you want to answer if you want to answer, but what sort of pains you the most right now?
What pain?
What's hurting the most in all of this?
The children dying, the death toll is very high.
What hurting me the most is the ignorance of the West. Meanwhile, the kids have been bombed, they've been killed, even under the tents. They follow them and they bombard them while they are even under the sky. And the West is silent about this. This is what makes me in pain. And they can't change it. And I know, they know that it's not going to stay for long, and it's going to be the history will write that they were on the wrong side of this war. And this makes me really furious that we see everything, every day we see the killings by hundreds, and nobody does anything from the West. Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's very simple. What's paining us right now immediately is the genocide. Genocide unfolding before our eyes on TV screens. The Israelis are bombing hospitals, churches, mosques, schools, universities. They dug up cemeteries on cameras. They dug up cemeteries. Why is this? Yeah. They want to cut every connection between the people and the land. This is how they do it. It's a genocide going on. That's the painful part, and the other painful part is the neglect. You know, nobody seems to care. International law, it's proving more than ever that it's a tool. Human rights, a joke. Nobody seems to be able to do anything. And just what's fresh in people's mind is the Western response to what happened in the Ukraine. And just immediately Gaza comes, and the difference is huge. You cannot but notice, you know. Why? That's painful.
Sorry. The suffering, the biggest pain is the human suffering. We're paying a very, very, very high price for our freedom.
Yeah, what hurts me is that when I see the horrible really things happening in Gaza and even in the West Bank, and nobody cares. And what hurts me more is that I can't do anything. I'm helpless. What can even you can't get somebody to listen to you. This is the only maybe chance that we were given, that we speak and express ourselves. I am in touch with my in-laws every day. When they have like an internet, the minute they have it, they contact us and they tell us about the horrible things that's happening there. Every day they say, yeah, we are expecting that tomorrow you will not hear us. Some of them already died. All of them, their homes were like taken down. Rubble, you see rubble everywhere. And now in northern Gaza, it's like they don't even if you have money, you do not find anything to buy. They are hungry. They are dying because of hunger also. And I have nothing to do. Even when you want to help, you can't find like an easy way to help. What can we do? We just send some money. Money is nothing now for them, nothing. They say if we have money, there's nothing to buy. So this hurts a lot. When I eat my food, I feel guilty. When I go to sleep, to my bed, I feel guilty that I compare myself to them. See, yeah, I'm here comfortable with my AC, with my, and they are there. They even don't find anything. The feeling that they are waiting for a bomb to come, and they are waiting for death. Every minute in their lives, they are waiting for death. So this hurts a lot. This makes me sometimes, maybe I don't sleep maybe 4 hours a day, and there is I'm hoping I go to I wake up in the middle of the night hoping that I hear some good news that the United Nations or the hypocrisy of the world makes you feel like hurt. Yeah, it crushes you. Human rights, the United Nations, I don't know what, and nothing is done. It hurts a lot.
Maybe, thank you.
Take your time.
Injustice. I never felt it. Like I was living in injustice, like area and part of my life, but I never experienced something like that. It hurt me from inside, outside, physically, mentally. I don't think my life is gonna like back like before 7th of October or what I have seen on social media, what I have heard from my relatives. It's overwhelmed, and I can't explain it. I can't explain it. I wish if I could, but it's too much, and I wish sometimes I wish if I was there, like I never left. I really wish I never left, and I died there. It will be more, at least I can feel whatever, like I can do something. Like I feel like helpless and hopeless. And feeling hopeless, it's very, very harmful for a human being. This is what I'm feeling now. I'm sorry if I
It's hard to answer because this has been, this genocide has been going on for over a year now. So your mind adjusts. And now also with the war in Lebanon, because my husband's family is there. My husband's mom was Palestinian. She was born in Ramle, and she was 5 when they left. So probably there together. And then she lived through all of the horrors of the Lebanese civil war. And now her daughter did too. And she's still there. And now her daughter is there with her, son. So it's just generation after generation after generation of living one war after the next. It's too much. It's nuts. The other day I was sitting with my friends on the floor, listening to the TV in the news on the background, and our kids were running, and I said, oh, can we swear? Okay, I won't swear. What can I say? Sorry, I lost my thought. I said, oh my goodness, we've become our parents. Like, it was such a, for me, it like really shook me, because all I remember from my parents is one war after the next, and them in front of the TV, and we know something's wrong, but we don't know exactly. One war after the other, the Iraq war, the Syria war, the Lebanese war, it's just literally the second intifada, the first intifada, the Iran-Iraq war. There's just one after the next that we've lived. And it was just, it shook me.
So the last question is, do you have hope? And if you do, what gives you hope?
I always have hope. And what makes my hope even bigger and looking forward for a better future is what I see around the schools, the universities. My kids, they are well educated now about what's going on in Palestine. That gives me a lot of hope. Before October 7th, they were just doing things, and the Palestinian issue was okay, but it wasn't like this. Now I can see the hope in their eyes. Even one day my daughter, she told me, Mom, we're gonna liberate Palestine. It's our generation. And I see that because they are more organized, they're doing things the way it should be. And they're not scared. And they know the rights, and they know how to do it. And I think this gives me hope that the future generation will resolve this issue for all of us. Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Whenever my doctor visits me, he asks me this question. He says, "You don't you think of like one day committing suicide or?" I say no. And she said, "Why do you say no so confidently?" And I tell him, because it is in our culture, it is in our religion to be hopeful all the time, despite the pain and despite the difficulties and despite all these wars that we went through. Look at me, I'm in Canada. All my 5 children are well educated. They have wonderful jobs. I'm surviving. I'm now 78 years old. I'm still working, and I'm still working and doing a wonderful job to to feel useful in this world, and what all the signs that I see around me give me hope that it will be a better future for us, and one day this hypocrite world will wake up on such atrocities and genocide, and they will blame themselves one day that how could we allow this to happen, because at the end of the tunnel there is always a light coming, and there is hope, and we Palestinians are strong people.